oh, when am I going to use this in the real world? Right. And teachers would look at me sideways and be like, kind of brush that off. But the reality is, like, that's the right question. Right question is, when am I going to use this? If there's no good answer for that question, it's really hard to justify being in a classroom. Like, I think it's legit. And so I think if you are on the other side, if you're the teacher or if you're building a program, like, that is the question you're answering over and over and over again. Why does this matter? When am I going to use this? That question you asked as a kid, that was the right question.
That sounds like such a full circle moment of like doing fractions for the first time. It's like, when am I going to use this? And it's like, if you do math, you'll use it. And it's like, what if I don't do math? Or if I do something else? This is what's important to me. So I like that. I really like that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Jason Gorman, who is the founder of the Jackrabbit Learning Experience. Jason, I'm excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Tell everyone a little bit more about Jackrabbit, who you guys are, who you help, what you're all about, and a little bit of context in the business.
Sure. So we build custom learning programs for all kinds of organizations. And I really do mean all kinds. So we've worked with places like the Grammys, building music, help for people, courses for people getting into the music industry. We built courses for Medtronic diabetes, training people to use their medical devices. We've done work for universities like Harvard and Boston University. So, we create all kinds of different online learning experiences. The thing that we do that's a little different, though, is that we also help people build their capacity to do it themselves. A lot of our clients come to us not ever having done this before, not having any kind of learning team or learning operations. So we help other organizations also build their own learning team and learning operations while they're also building their program with us.
That's so awesome. And I always love speaking with someone who has worked in many different avenues. And as we briefly touched on in our first conversation, it's always something new happening. It's always just, hey, this is a new avenue, a new thing, a new project, a different project, which creates a lot of I guess a lot of excitement, is a way to put it. Talk to me a little bit more about what's so important about a business's learning experience and what should they get from, what's the benefit, the real benefit that they get from improving their learning experience internally?
People usually need learning experiences for different reasons. So, I actually mentioned a couple. I can revisit those. Those are good examples.
Sure.
So a place like the Grammys obviously has its mainstay, right? Like their main business is not going to be a course on Coursera, right? Their main business is their awards show and the things that go with that. So this is something that's sort of ancillary to their brand. It's brand building. It's about engaging with their audience in a different way. It perhaps could generate additional revenue. I can't speak to their strategy, but it is just a way to possibly give back to the people that want to engage with them. It is possibly a way to just sort of be in the world in a different way beyond the award ceremony. In the case of a Medtronic, we started working with them during the pandemic, and the way that they had been training people to use insulin pumps was they would go to a physical person in an office, and that person would train them how to use the pump. And that meant that person had to learn everything they needed to know in 2 hours. And there was there are obviously other resources that they could use, but they were not comprehensive. They were not really written in the way that Medtronic wanted them to be. So we helped with that. We helped them find their voice and build courses that helped people, learn the simple steps, right, to use their device in a healthy way. And then in a case like a university, that is what they do, right? This is actually what they're selling. And so, these are all really different cases. So, the value of a program, it just depends on what the organization needs. Sometimes it's internal training. Sometimes you are a business that you can't find people that already know how to do the things that you do. This is true for like clean energy. There are a lot of new technologies that nobody's ever used. And so you can't hire people that already have those skills. You have to train them. And so to them, it's mission critical, right? Learning. So those are some examples.
Awesome. And I've often ran into the situation where companies are so used to the same old boring training that they've had for years and years and years. So what do you think are some of the Actually, we'll look at this in two different lenses. So, what are some of the mistakes that people are usually making when they are trying to enhance their learning experience and their training, but they can't seem to do it the right way? And what are some of the best one, two, or three things that they can do to do it the right way?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we tend to think that learning is about it's just about the content. Like, we just have to put the right content in people's hands. Then they're going to be able to take that content and then now they'll know. Like now they'll be able to do it. The other mistake that people tend to make is they think, and it's just like if we find the right technology to put the content on, then we're good. Like we're gonna get the it'll be the perfect way to transfer the learning from me to them.
Yeah, problem solved.
Problem solved. But honestly, the main thing, you have to have those things. You got to have good technology. You have to have good content, right? Those things you have to have.
Hmm.
But what you really, really need is you need to have a deep understanding of why people care, why they need the thing that you're teaching them, what is important to them about it, what are they going to do with it today, tomorrow, next week? How does it help them in terms of their aspirations for their own future? I mean, that is really what matters. And so, what that means when you're building a program is that it's much less about how do I just how do I teach this concept? How do I put this information out there? And it's much more about like, what does this person need? How do I make this usable? How do I make this resonate? How do I connect it to things that they know that they're going to need to do soon or know that they want to do in the future? But also, how do I connect it to things that they've done in the past, right? So they can start to build on what they already do or know or the experiences they have. It's kind of that simple. There's so many things out there in terms of learning sciences and theories of learning, but at the end of the day, that's kind of the ball game, right? It's just connecting with what matters to your learner.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like not overlooking purpose and intention. The purpose, the reason why they're doing their why, and okay, what's the intention behind it? Why should they do their why? It's like what
Yeah.
connects them to their story, what connects them to their future, what connects them to their mission.
Yeah, and it's funny. We kind of had this beaten out of us, all of us, right? Like I don't know about you, but like when I was in the eighth grade or whatever, and was just didn't want we wanted to be anywhere but school. I would say to teachers like, "Oh, when am I going to use this in the real world?" Right? And then the teachers would look at me sideways and be like, kind of brush that off. But the reality is, like, that's the right question. The
Hmm.
right question is, when am I going to use this? If there's no good answer for that question, it's really hard to justify being in the classroom. Like, I think it's legit. And so I think if you are on the other side, if you're the teacher, or if
Yeah.
you're building a program, like that is the question you're answering over and over and over again. Why does this matter? When am I going to use this?
Yeah.
That question you asked as a kid, that was the right question.
That sounds like such a full circle moment
Yeah.
of like doing fractions for the first time. It's like, when am I gonna use this? And it's like, if you do math, you'll use it. And it's like, what if I don't do math? What if I do something else? This is what's important to me. So that, I like that. I really like that. And as the company was growing, Jason, how do the challenges you guys had in the beginning phases differ from the challenges that you might have in the business right now?
I think if I had to, I was thinking about this the other day. I probably had like 4 or 5 like versions of this
Mm,
company. But and not that it's been like totally rewritten every time, but the idea is that something has happened and it's necessitated a major shift in what we do and
mhm,
how we're constituted and the way that we work. And early on when it was just me and before I had a partner, it was just like the main thing was how do I sell this? How
mm,
actually am I describing what I do in a way that people can buy it? Right. That's just a simple first question. And then as we matured, it's how do we create more complicated messaging about what we do, or even totally other things. How do we do HR? I don't know how to do payroll. I'd never done payroll before in my life. I don't know. How do we do payroll? How do I do my books? I've never used QuickBooks. how do I don't know. So like those are the early challenges. So like what are the
Mhm.
basic things about running a business that I had zero experience with? And then as we matured, it's, other kinds of things like we're cruising along, we do what we do, we're very good at it, we understand what we're doing. Oh,
Yeah.
now AI exists. We have LLMs,
Hmm.
and pretty early on, I recognized, yeah, we had change. Like
Hmm.
this is the beginning of a very serious, permanent change in our industry. And everybody who does what we do is going to be affected.
Mhm.
So that's kind of ushered in a new era.
Mhm, and how do you think or what do you think is the role of AI in all this? I think, and I'll preface it with there's so many people that I've spoken with that and I'll just say the older generation. I'll just use those terms, but I'll say the 50 plus, that's obviously they also have businesses, they also are leaders, they're also running teams, and they often tend to over rely on AI, like just take it for what it is at face value. And obviously that's a recipe for disaster if you're running a business based on what ChatGPT is telling you. But what do you think is the role of AI in facing these challenges, but also being able to innovate and adapt into this new era that we're going into?
Well, first of all, I am 50 plus. So I'm going to take that as a compliment. So thank you. That's
Well,
really nice.
you're you look nothing close to 50 plus, so wow, good on
That's-
you.
I appreciate that. So I will say this. When we think about, as I described at the top of this conversation, a big part of what we do is help people build their own learning operations.
Mhm,
And this came out of us just developing our own best ways of doing things. And, a lot of times it never really made even sense to share those things with our clients, not because they wouldn't want to know, but it's just like if they're not going to do this themselves, like we don't want to burden them with
overwhelmed.
things that they're not interested in. But as it turned out, they were, and that then there's a lot of back and forth involved. And so we just decided, well, let's make this a bigger part of our business.
Mhm,
And so in that operations piece, AI, um, it has a place a kind of across the spectrum of what any business in this space can do. And that is true from, functions that have nothing to do with building learning, right? Like the ones that I mentioned, like HR, the applications of
mhm,
AI and HR are astonishing. Like the number of laws that you have to comply to, right, when you hire a person are substantial and they're important. And getting good answers about those things is good. Or reading a contract. AI is really good at that. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I don't know what things mean all the time. But AI can help me with that stuff. So it's
sure.
things like that. But it's also in the process of creating a program, the applications are so vast, from cutting down the time that you spend working with subject matter experts to get the most out of their time, to organize what they're giving you, to create content more quickly, to automate things that could never be automated before in terms of um, content creation or creating metadata or
Mhm,
organizing your work or searching for previous conversations or identifying past decisions that you've made in earlier. I mean, these things are all can become roadblocks, right? If you don't have the answers at your fingertips, you can't do them quickly.
yeah.
They can slow or stop your project.
Mhm,
And I think the reality is you could throw out randomly any process or thing that somebody in a company like mine does, and eh, almost certainly there is an AI application for it.
mhm,
And so this is an opportunity and a challenge. It's a challenge because it's like boiling the ocean. There are so many, many things you can do.
mhm,
There's no perfect way to do it. You have to
yeah,
apply a lot of creativity. You have to really understand what you're doing and why you're doing it in order to
mhm,
identify a way to make it better, which is a big That's really what we do, right? That part of our business. It's like, what is the right workflow for you? What's the right workflow for your business? And then once you get that workflow, then you apply AI. But if you just jump in and start throwing AI at everything that you do, if you're doing something wrong, you're just going to do it wrong faster.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna do it more wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, the reality, it is just, again, I can break down any part of the process you want to, but I guess that's my basic answer. It can be applied everywhere.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I really like your take on that, and it's especially that final part where you said if you're doing something wrong, it's just gonna be a little bit efficiently doing it wrong. So it's like we got to make sure that we're aware of what's actually um how it's actually impacting things, which is I think a key thing for so many businesses. And if we're looking, or sorry, if you're looking at your business and looking at the growth goals that you have, the things that you want to achieve, what are some of those, maybe some of the obstacles that could get in the way of those achievements? Is it, when you're looking at it, is it the client acquisition side of things? Is it the trust building? Is it the conversations? Is it maybe the operations that you mentioned on the background? Like, what are some of those things that are always just running through your thoughts of like, hey, this is something that we want to be able to just get over and get on with the journey.
For a service business like ours, where nobody's ever going to come to our website, click a button, and buy what we do. It's just, and they shouldn't. I mean, when people hire us, they hire us, like you said, because they trust us. They have to trust us. Usually, when we're doing something for somebody, it's high stakes. All of those things that I mentioned before, all those projects, those are high stakes for those organizations. We take that really seriously.
Yeah.
And so customer acquisition is tricky because you have to have trust, and it's an important process. I take the process really seriously.
Yeah.
And so for me, there are only so many one-on-one conversations I can have, right? There's a kind of built-in limiting factor in terms of scale. So me and my partner, we can have lots of one-on-one conversations, but that's only going to get us so far. So how do we get further than that, right? What is the right way to develop, to build trust where it doesn't already exist, to show that we really know what we're doing, and to help people understand that there's a way that they can get help to get to their own goals. And as we think about marketing, that's really what I think about with marketing. It's like the role of marketing is for people to get a sense of who I am, what my company is all about, what the people in my company value, in the way that we work, and how it can help them, before actually meeting them. I think if I'm doing marketing well, that's probably what I'm doing. But it is, in some ways, it's the hardest thing to crack for business like mine.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's thank you for sharing that. I think it's a recurring pattern that I've seen for so many companies as well. And even companies that are in doing tens of millions, and it's just hey, yeah, when we have word of mouth and referrals and all these things, it's all great, but for the ones that don't come through that, is like, how are we able to cross that barrier? So thank you for sharing that. And I have one final question here for you, Jason, which is actually a question that I usually ask, but this question is not from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you are, but I usually ask this in the beginning, but I figure since the last guest asked this, I was like, I'll leave this to the end, and we'll see how that goes. So are you ready for the question?
I'll give it a shot.
So here's their question, which I'm sure you'll know the answer to, but how did you come up with the ideas, or with the idea for creating this business?
First 10 years of my career, I worked in higher education. So I developed a way of working that really worked. And then I went into consulting. And in consulting, I started working with all kinds of organizations. Worked with banks and nonprofits. I worked with large publishers. And they all needed a similar thing. They needed some kind of learning product or program. But really what that program was really different in each case, right? Like all of those organizations need a different end product. And what I found myself doing was like reinventing the wheel every time.
Mm.
It's like, oh, my process was just, I had to shift it every time. And it was like, this is stupid and inefficient. What am I doing? So I really set off on a project like, how do I create a way of working that I can use no matter who it is that I'm working with? It's just going to be effective regardless of the type of organization.
Mhm.
And it took me a long time to build that playbook, but I did build that playbook. And I would say as part, as I was building it, I think it started to occur to me like, oh, this is something that I could go out and do. Like this could be a business. If I wanted to take this thing that I'm putting together off of decades of experience, I think I could turn it into a business. And so that's when it started to occur to me. And then one day I came into work and I was laid off along with everybody else in my company. We were all let go. And I had been tinkering with it. And I just decided, well, all right, now or never. I'm going to jump in and do it. So that's was really where it came from.
Awesome. This is an awesome story. I always love hearing kind of like the beginning or the spark for everyone else. And it seems like you had the perfect, hey, you've been tinkering with it. There's been signs. It's been on the radar. Do it now, and you did it. So, and here we are now, and here we are now. So Jason, thank you so much for your time. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing your insights, your perspectives, and a lot of your experiences. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you, or maybe a little bit more about Jackrabbits?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I spend too much time there. It's if you go to LinkedIn and search Jason Gorman, Jackrabbit, I'm sure I will come up. Please send me a connection invite. I'm happy to connect. I'm really curious about people and would love to just know about what folks are up to and what got them listening to this podcast in the first place. So there's that. You can also go to my website. It's jackrabbitlx.com. And so you can learn about our company and what we do. And there's a little bit more about me and my team on that page, of course, as well.
Amazing, Jason. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.